Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you to those of you who are here on campus and those who are watching online. Again, my name is Carol Cox. I'm a course director in the Internet Marketing programs here at Full Sail. I'm hosting this session titled Orlando's Digital Culture, where technology and creativity meet. So please put your hands together and help me welcome our panelists. We have David Glass at the end. Michael Parler. And Shea Glenny. And I have the privilege of knowing all three of them prior to this event, but let me give you some background information on them before we get started. So David Glass is the creator and executive producer of OrlandoiX and founding publisher of the Florida Technology Journal, the state's leading resource for digital tech news. David has produced over 200 events in the course of his career and is responsible for producing some of Orlando's largest tech events, including iSummit, Venture Lounge, Digital Orlando, Tech Venture Conference, and FTJ Live. Throughout his career, David has worked to foster relevant, forward-thinking conversations about digital technology in Florida. This has recently included Orlando Rising, a documentary film highlighting the growth and impact of Orlando's thriving tech industry. OrlandoiX is the next step in carrying out that mission. Michael Parler is a Full Sail alumnus and the vice president of Purple Rock Scissors, a digital creative agency located in downtown Orlando. The agency services clients throughout the nation, providing digital strategy, interactive applications, social business solutions, and interactive marketing campaigns. Michael provides interactive guidance for Purple Rock Scissors, clients and partners, as well as day-to-day business intelligence for the agency. His core focus is developing goals, plans, processes, and revenue-generating strategies. And finally, Dana Shea Glenny is an entrepreneur and an activator, running a chief digital officer for hire agency, using groups of CMOs and CDOs to harness collective wisdom for clients' digital decisions. Shea is known for bringing Kauffman Foundation's 1 Million Cups and Global Entrepreneurship Week to our community. As the new director of We Venture Orlando, a women's economic initiative, she is helping women launch and grow companies with a special emphasis on leveraging digital technology for scalability. Shea is a Full Sail graduate who has a history of creating internship opportunities and jobs for Full Sail students in digital media. And today happens to be Shea's birthday, so I'd like to wish her a happy birthday and welcome our panelists. So thank you again, everyone, for being here. And to get things started, let's hopefully watch a brief video created by the Economic Development Commission here in Orlando that highlights Orlando's burgeoning tech and creative scene. All right, let's get that queued up here. No? All right, we can come back to it later if we're not able to queue it up. All right, so let's get started then in talking about where we are today and where we've been over the past 5 years. David, I know that you've done a documentary film called Orlando Rising. I hear a lot about this Orlando being on the rise. So where has Orlando come from over the past 5 years?
Tremendous amount of growth. Can you guys hear me? Is this on? Okay, am I pushing something? I can just talk loud if that's okay. I'm from New York, so. The last 5 years has been tremendous growth here in the Orlando area. And actually, I have a couple slides. I was hoping that we'd be able to show them that shows where I started here 5 years ago. 2010, we did our first event. It was our iSummit conference in downtown Orlando. And it's amazing at that time, there weren't a lot of resources available. In fact, I wasn't even familiar with Full Sail at that point. We're talking about, when I show this slide, there's only like 5 logos on the slide. And we're talking about tech acceleration, tech media, we're talking about signature programming in the market. There's really nothing for me to connect to at that time. And so it's kind of interesting where we are now. 5 years later, and it's amazing when I show the slide with the 4 or 5 logos, and then I've got another slide that shows about 80 logos on it, how much growth there's been here in the Orlando market. We have co-working spaces, we have accelerator programs, we have an increase in venture pipeline, we have programming. This is a good example of bringing us in. I don't know if that's been done before, of bringing folks that are in the Orlando tech and business scene into Full Sail's Hall of Fame. So that's a great thing. We have been able to grow events like iSummit and OrlandoiX. It wasn't mentioned in the intro, is a 5-day international digital festival. So if you think about the capabilities of Orlando, we wouldn't have been able to do that even 5 years ago. From the pipeline of folks that we need to connect with it to put it on, the venues, that didn't exist. So tremendous growth over the past 5 years. I wish I had the visuals because I think that really shows it, but incredible things going on here.
Thanks, David, and maybe we'll get those queued up later. And so, Michael, you're a Full Sail grad, and you graduated with the digital media degree, which doesn't quite exist anymore because it's morphed since then. So how has Orlando changed since you were here as a Full Sail student to today and then owning, being part of an agency?
Yeah, totally. So I actually moved here from Tennessee back in 2004 to attend Full Sail. Back then it was called Digital Media. While I was here, they actually rebranded it to Digital Arts and Design, or DAD. And I attended a completer program to go from an associate to bachelor's, because that's when Full Sail launched their bachelor degree program as well. And back then, I honestly had no intentions of staying in the area. I came here just for school. My dream before coming here was to work in some kind of gaming industry, probably like out in California or something, or wherever they were at. But once I got here, I think the city kind of like sucks you in, and I think it's really interesting how the culture has evolved over time. To David's point, I honestly don't remember a whole lot of activity back then, and to be honest, Full Sail had a much smaller footprint as well. There's been a lot of transformation here with adding buildings and kind of like growing the campus, and then all the online stuff got rolled out. So I think Full Sail in itself is a testament to the growth in the area, even in terms of just employing people and adding degree programs that are relevant to today's society. I think as long as we're kind of like continuing that trend and that shift, I think that's kind of where Orlando is going. But I think it's about the responsibility of who's here to kind of make that dream come true.
Yes, great points. And we'll talk some more in a little bit about retaining talent, all of you Full Sail students and grads here in Orlando. And Shea, why don't you share your story? You're also not from Orlando. You came here not too long ago. So tell us where you came from and what you're doing with your Full Sail degree.
Yeah, absolutely. So I got my internet marketing bachelor's degree. I was one of the first 100 to enroll in the program. And I actually had lived in Orlando area before, and I was in the nonprofit space. I left Orlando in 2005 to go out to Kansas City. And when I was out in Kansas City, I was involved in Kauffman Foundation, the entrepreneurship scene, and it was in Kansas City that I decided to get my internet marketing bachelor's from Full Sail. So I knew Full Sail's excellent reputation, so I was willing to take a gamble on this new degree program that they rolled out. Had a stellar online learning experience. It was awesome. When I started the program, I didn't even know what a hard drive was. And within 9 months of starting the program, I was actually tutoring small business owners on social media strategy, and accidentally created a demand for digital marketing services and launched a virtual agency in Kansas City. That was going great, but all of my family was around Central Florida, and my siblings were getting married and having babies, and I didn't want to miss out on all the fun. So I thought that I was leaving a really hopping scene in Kansas City, because we got Google Fiber out there, and Kauffman is really instrumental in growing up, the region. It's kind of known as Silicon Prairie. So looked for opportunities to come back to Orlando. Didn't realize what an amazing time in Orlando's history that I was coming back to the city in, but found an internet marketing director position with an agency downtown, and help them build out their internet marketing department, content marketing offerings, and very quickly, and I attribute a lot to Full Sail's presence in the community. The demand for digital marketing and content marketing just started exploding, so my services were in demand, so I started freelancing CMO services and helping agencies and brands build out their internet marketing and content marketing departments.
Great, that's wonderful. So let me throw this out to all three of you and whoever wants to answer first. So tell us a little bit about Orlando's current technology and creative landscape. So what are some of the new developments that are going on, Creative Village, Canvas? Talk to us a little bit about that and where you see those headed over the next, say, let's even do short term over the next year or two.
Well, Shea, you just opened We Venture, so that's a good
Yeah.
thing to talk about.
We
What
did.
you guys are doing with women entrepreneurs.
Yeah, it's awesome. So we just got a $750,000 grant from the SBA. So that's $750,000 that's new money to our region to invest in women entrepreneurs. So women who want to start and grow companies. We're located down in Canvas in the Exchange Building in the heart of downtown, where there's a really burgeoning tech scene happening. Lots of digital professionals and creative juices flowing down there. And we have a unique focus at our center. We are especially equipped to help all women to leverage digital technology to scale their concepts.
You're in the Canvas building too, right?
Yeah, Shea and I are neighbors, so it's convenient. How many of you have been down to the Church Street Station area recently? Anybody go down there?
See a couple.
Yeah, well, the Church Street Station area has largely been sort of a, I don't know, dormant area. What would we say over the past few years? And what we've seen is this transformation of it becoming a creative and tech center. So where Shea and I are based, we're inside of the Church Street Exchange building, which I believe was built in 1981 or 82, and was sort of a tourist attraction with games and amusement stuff. And then kind of that went away, and it became a specialty shopping mall. And then it went through several ownership changes and was largely just essentially a vacant specialty mall for about 10 years. And so it's been repurposed into a tech center. So we have Canvas, which is the co-working space, which is where Shea and I are out of, but there's also several other tech companies that have located in there. Iron Yard is in there. There's some folks from Full Sail that work out of there. And essentially, it's a hub for startup activity.
Yeah.
It's where you would come if you're a 1 or 2 person company and you want to get you want to get dialed in, you want to get started. Particularly in these types of technologies that you teach here with digital media and internet technology and software design. And what you're going to find is you're going to dial into a group of like-minded people that you might not find anywhere else that are just like you, or you might find other folks to collaborate with. In addition to We Venture being a resource, I'm there with Florida Tech Journal and OrlandoiX. The Orlando Tech Association's offices are there. We think we're up to around 70, somewhere in 70 companies.
Wow.
And those companies, again, could be just one person all the way up to we have companies as large as 10 or 12 people that are based out of the space. So
We've got Starter Studio down there. Starter Studio is Orlando's first tech accelerator. This is a big deal. 3-month-long program. Companies come in, they work their butts off to launch their companies. They get great mentorship, and that's all located downtown in Canvas.
And I think, David, to your point, it's really important to have a co-working space like Canvas in a community because it brings people together. So all of these 70-plus companies could still exist somewhere in the Central Florida area, and they could probably do pretty well on their own, but having them all together in one location, they can share resources, they can mentor each other, they can make connections with each other. So for those of you who haven't been down there, definitely look for some opportunities and events to check it out. And then, Michael, could you talk to us a little bit about Creative Village and what's going on there?
Yeah, totally. So show of hands, does anybody here, have you heard of Creative Village or kind of what's going on with that? Nobody.
You guys are going to learn great things today.
So essentially there's a section of downtown that's kind of being carved out just west of I-4, right? Yeah, west of I-4.
Yeah, for the old Amway Arena.
Yeah. To kind of create like a new tech hub center for the city. So the local government's really backing that, and they're really pushing the agenda to kind of make that a very tech-focused part of the city. One, to kind of draw talent and compete nationally, but two, just to kind of give space to the community that honestly deserves it. I think, we're kind of spread out at the moment. Purple Rock is actually located maybe 2 blocks away from Canvas, but a lot of the tech centers are actually located over towards the UCF area, over in Research Park, all the way up to Lake Mary and through Maitland and that whole I-4 corridor. So one of the big things is kind of centralizing it downtown to kind of create that local economy for people to network and have that community involvement and really foster the creativity in one space.
Great. Okay, I think we may be ready to show the video and the slides. So let's go ahead and do that because I think that this will be good visuals to go along with what we're talking about. All right, 1 second.
And just to continue the conversation a little bit on the co-working spaces, Canvas is incredible. So Canvas gets a lot of attention because they focused on being a tech co-working space, and they're also nonprofit. But we've got a couple of co-working spaces opening up all downtown Orlando. So there's Catalyst, there's CoLab, there's even Factor, which is a maker's space happening. So all
Melrose Center.
That's
Melrose
right, the
Center.
Melrose Center, which is incredible. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
26,000 square feet. So if you think about the public library system, traditionally, you would go and check out books, but people are not checking out books anymore. So Orlando, is it Orlando or is it the Orange County Library? I don't know if it's a city or it's a county property, but what they did is they took 26,000 square feet of essentially what used to be books and turned that into a center of technology and creativity. So there's lab space, professional lab space, very similar to what you'd have at Full Sail, sound studio, green screen rooms. They've got open co-working. They've got all photo lab. They've got meeting space. It's a beautiful space, and it's actually free to use. Yeah. That's the best part is if you're an Orange County resident, you can go in there and use the space. They have educational classes. It's been an incredible resource, and it's one of the first in the entire country. So I would just say beyond Creative Village, the space that Mike's talking about, and Canvas, you need to think of just the downtown area as one big creative village.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, here's some field trips for y'all in the future. All right, so let's go ahead and play this video.
This is Orlando. This is where we believe in magic and fantasies and wishing upon stars and the power of the imagination. This is where we believe in dreams and seeing them come true. This is Orlando, known around the world as the home of happiness, and to those who live here happily, as home. This is more than just a place to stay a while. It's a place to stay on the cutting edge. Here, innovation comes in every form. Entertainment in every variety. And thriving businesses in every size. So if you think you know all there is to know about Orlando, prepare to be surprised. Because until you get to really know this place, this community, and see all the reasons why it's so magical, rest assured, you don't know the half of it.
So again, that film was from the Orlando Economic Development Commission, and I think they did a great job with it and showing really what is going on in Orlando. And before we talk about the future and some challenges, let's also talk about this need for talent. And let's go ahead and close this off here. Okay. Maybe we can go back to the
Hey, Carol, do we want to
Twitter?
show them the 2 growth slides?
Yeah, I can
Since
try
we
to
talked
get there,
about
so
that.
I can't get to my mouse. Can we flip back to the Twitter slide, please? All right. Yeah, that was a
power of
great
advertising.
one to come up.
Digital creativity.
Right.
There we go. Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah. Here we go. Okay, so these were the slides that David was referring to earlier. So go ahead, David.
So I was talking about earlier in June of 2010 when I first arrived here and actually met Carol as part of our iSummit program. This is what existed here in 2010 relative to programming, acceleration, industry support organizations, and tech media. So not much. You had Otronicon, which is a signature program that the Orlando Science Center puts on. Great program, really, to get kids interested in STEM careers. The National Simulation Centers here. CoLab, so we're talking about Canvas and all the other spaces, but CoLab was the first space in downtown Orlando that if you're an entrepreneur and you're just one or two person company and you're looking for space on the cheap, you would go to CoLab. Can we go back? Did we lose the slide?
Yeah, we can go back to my computer just for a moment. Thanks.
UCF's Business Incubation Program, and then ITSIC, which is a conference for the simulation industry. It's actually the largest conference in the world. So this is 2010, and then the next slide, can you guys see that? This is where we are now. So I could not fit all of the logos on the slide, and they're in no particular order, but it just shows you the growth. And a lot of this growth here is in the last 24 months. So it doesn't even go back 5 years. And a lot of it's grassroots activity. You know, Starter Studio that Carol mentioned, Shea's program, the big exchange for entrepreneurs, Orlando Tech Week. The Orlando Tech Association didn't exist 2 years ago. Some of the programming that we're doing, we'll go into some of the other support organizations as we go through the conversation, but just gives you an idea of just growth in the technology industry here, so it's pretty incredible.
Mm-hmm. It is, and then I'll just cite a couple of promising statistics. In 2014, Kiplinger named Orlando as a top 10 city in the U.S. to outpace the nation in job growth, and Gallup also ranked Orlando number 3 in the job creation index score. So as we can see here and we can see in the video, there's a lot going on with job growth, which should entice you all to stay here in Orlando once you graduate. And so Michael, why don't you share with us a little bit about what you do at Purple Rock Scissors with your agency and the talent that you bring in and nurture there.
Yeah, totally. I'm actually going to kind of extend and start that with more of my background. Once I graduated from Full Sail in 2006, I actually left the Orlando area, and I was working in the Tampa job market for a little bit. And I went to work at a creative agency. Essentially, once I got into Full Sail and realized gaming wasn't like my destiny, I fell in love with web because it was really booming back then as to what web standards are, and kind of getting away from like flash media and more into like data driven. And one of the interesting things was I got a phone call from somebody here local, a very small shop at the time here local in Orlando. And of all things that was interesting, my previous course director from Full Sail was working there at the time and referred me because I was in his class. And long story short, I came back, accepted the job offer, and came back to Orlando. So I think that's kind of just the testament to like really what Orlando is doing. It really just kind of does suck you in, and it really does keep you here too. As long as you're embedded in the community, I think that's the big thing. Is if you don't have that community involvement, you're not going to get the value out of it. But as long as you kind of go the extra mile, go to these meetups, go to these user groups or technology groups, whatever kind of your background is in, there's definitely meetups and community stuff here in Orlando for you. I think you just have to kind of find where you can plug yourself in. If you're into advertising, there's Ad2, which is kind of like the ad fed for the younger generation. There's DrupalCon for developers. There's Barcamp for developers. The list goes on and on. So I think as long as you do your research or just talk to people in the area, you'll definitely find some kind of home for yourself. And I think really, if you're chasing your dream and you're leaving the city to do it, you're doing it the wrong way. I think you have to kind of create the dream for yourself. You can't just kind of go latch onto somebody else's. So I think it's really about networking. It's about maybe finding somebody who is even in Full Sail, maybe just in a different degree program than you are, and you both kind of share the same hobbies or the same kind of big picture idea, and then you can kind of find some mesh in between there, and then you guys can start something together on the side, and then it can turn into kind of your dream job one day. So I think it's, to sum all that up, that's a little long-winded, but follow your passion and make of it what you will.
Shea?
Yeah, so did you want me to answer something specific?
Well, talk a little bit about what you're doing with WeVenture and then your own company as far as nurturing talent and bringing in Full Sail grads or other people in the community.
Yeah. I have an affinity for Full Sail grads because in general I find that Full Sail grads are hustlers, and like you said, they're willing to go out and make their opportunity, and that's really kind of how the marketplace is moving. Even if you get hired for a job, a lot of times they're looking for you to come in and find new opportunity and identify areas of growth and innovation within the company. So with the agencies that I work with, I'm definitely looking to fill those internet marketing departments and content marketing departments with talent that understands the new way of marketing, understands the digital realm. At We Venture, there's going to be hopefully some really exciting internship opportunities that we'll get to place interns with women-owned startups. And when I say startups, I mean something that normally is tech-driven in general. If it's scalable, it's going to be tech-enabled usually. So
that's great. And David, talk to us a little bit about what the government is doing to help nurture the tech and creative scene here in Orlando.
Yeah, so with OrlandoiX, it takes tremendous collaboration to pull off an event the scale that we're planning for in October of this year. And Full Sail has been hugely supportive. They're one of our biggest sponsors in making that happen, and the leadership has really been engaged. And you need that when you go to your mayors. And our mayors here, we've got two amazing mayors, Mayor Teresa Jacobs of Orange County and Mayor Buddy Dyer for the city of Orlando. And so we've got these awesome venues to host things in, but they're very, very expensive venues. And so the county owns the Orange County Convention Center, and they've made a contribution of space. And then just recently, with the City of Orlando's Downtown Development Board, we attracted the largest amount of funding, special event funding in the history of the city. It was $100,000 that will actually go into support for our programming. So we're in the Amway Center in downtown, which we're going to be turning into a gaming stadium. So stay tuned for details on that. And we have the entire campus for the new Dr. Phillips Center, which just opened last year. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to see it. And then, as I mentioned, we have about 300,000 square feet of space in the convention center. And so you need that kind of support from your county leaders, your economic development leaders, your chambers, your folks in the industry need to come together. And we were able to pull that off. And this is something they just don't do for just anybody. They want to see this stuff happen here. And we can go on and on about folks going to Austin for events like South by, or going to San Francisco or New York for programming. When we have a lot of the tools here, we didn't put the slide up, but can anybody tell me the two areas that Orlando is a world leader in technology?
Modeling and simulation.
Right? That's one. What's the other?
Entertainment.
You're close. Entertainment technology. So think about what you see in the parks at Disney and Universal and the technology and the talent needed to power the rides. We're talking about stuff that you guys teach here with visual effects and all the design related stuff and augmented reality and virtual reality and all the stuff that might power a video game also powers these experiences that you have inside the theme park. So what do we have here that separates us from San Francisco and Austin and New York? Well, we own the entertainment technology piece. And so for October, we're bringing that industry here. And so that separates us from any other market really in the world. When you're a leader in something, you can execute something. And then going back to, again, the mayors, they want to see this stuff happen here. And they've been incredibly progressive. I mean, both mayors were at the We Venture launch last week. They show up at events. They talk to people. I could tell you with Teresa Jacobs, it's like a pep rally every time I'm in her office. It's incredible. So,
really, and right now is an excellent opportunity because Orlando's not an oversaturated market for technology and the creative industries like some of the other more well-known cities where it may be harder to get your foot in the door or to get the kind of funding, we're getting for OrlandoiX.
It's amazing what one person can do. I'm only one guy, okay? And I've been able to pull in EA and Full Sail on our county and our city. I've been able to get Michael actually on our board of directors. Shea's helped out. You've been involved. It's amazing what just one person can do in this city. And you can't say that about Austin or New York. The barriers to entry are incredibly high. So if you've got an idea that's really cool, whether it's for a company or a program, I mean, you can dial in really easily and get what you need to be successful. And what's interesting about our county leaders, too, is they're bought in for the long haul. They're not just in for year one. They're looking at the impact of the stuff we're working on over the long term. So,
Yeah, I was a newbie to town 2 years ago, showing up in the digital space and the tech space, and I was able to, bring the community together. We have 1 million cups now, which hosts about 100 people every Wednesday morning. Startups are presenting and the community is backing them. Big Exchange was a week-long series of events across 25 venues. We had 100 people kind of pursue their entrepreneurial dreams. And it's just because people like David and everybody on this panel just is so open to collaboration, and they're saying, let's write Orlando's story together.
yeah, we don't want to be the next Silicon Valley. We want to be the first Orlando.
I think the
That's
big
what we're
challenge is
creating
the stigma of Mickey Mouse. I don't know if I can say that on broadcast, but
Yeah.
I mean, that's what everybody thinks about when they hear Orlando, right? That's like international. That's just not national. Everybody comes here specifically for the theme parks. And I think for us to kind of grow as a city, they don't even know that we have a city until they drive by it. So I think that's, challenge number one. I think that the concept of having some kind of tech center downtown would obviously help that. But there is a challenge to get over that hurdle. And I think that what's interesting is Buddy Dyer and some reps from OUC and a couple others in local government actually traveled to New York and some other places to try to, from like an economic development perspective, convince businesses to set up shop here in Orlando. And I think the issue that they expressed was, where's the talent? We're afraid to open up shop if you can't fulfill the need with the resources in terms of people and employees. So I think we have to be on the map for something. And again, I think that just takes ownership from everybody here in the community to kind of step up to the plate and say, we are Orlando, we have the talent. Full Sail is a great example to the pipeline of talent. At Purple Rock Scissors, we actually hire Full Sail probably more than any other school just because we know what's capable. Our owner, Bobby Jones, he's actually a grad as well. I'm a grad, and a couple other key people on staff kind of came through Full Sail as well. So we know that it puts you through that rigorous training to do what you need to do in the tech industry. So don't take that for granted. I saw the poster out in the hall that said something about working 16-hour days. If you're in gaming, that's what you do. That's really for any industry nowadays. I think there's kind of that separation of work life. It's all blended with technology. So you kind of have to grab a hold of that and carve your own destiny.
And do what you love, right?
do what you
If
love.
work is play and play is work, then it's okay that they're 16-hour days.
Well, going back to your point, you said JOB. Does everybody know what JOB stands for? Just over broke, right? It's not a career, it's a job. Those are two different things. And if you have a career that you love, you never work a day in your life because you're doing what you love.
So, Michael, you brought up some challenges that Orlando faces, one of them being the perception from the outside that when you hear Orlando, you think tourism, the parks, and you don't really think Orlando as a hub for technology and for the creative industries. So what are some of the other challenges that Orlando is facing right now as far as attracting investment, businesses, say, coming here, moving here, or starting here, and then the talent pool?
Yeah, I don't want to sound pessimistic, but I have kind of a very specific perception on kind of that VC venture capital economy that we have going on here. I think it means well, and I think that everybody here has kind of that California mindset, but I think we have to mature as a city a little bit and really nail some stuff that is actually born and grown here. I think the big challenge is to attract the right VC funding and to make this a spot where that is actually interesting for them. You have to have some wins under your belt. And not to say that we don't as Orlando, but I think there is no Dropbox here. There's big corporations here, but I think from like a startup perspective, we're kind of few and far in between, and it just really takes kind of hitting that home run, and that could be any of you in the room today. Next 6-12 months you might have it, but for us to attract the right type of interest, we have to have some kind of notoriety, and I think things like OrlandoiX and Creative Village are really going to help propel that, especially with backing like from big heavy hitters in the community like Full Sail and EA and even local government. We definitely want to be there. We have the right talent. We have all you people in the room are kind of the next generation of that. So I think it's just making sure that we're in alignment and we put those pieces together and not spoil it, if that makes sense.
Right, and as David said, we don't want to be the next Silicon Valley. We want to be Orlando and keep what makes us unique here in Orlando, our culture and our environment. And we were talking before the panel started about really Orlando's a great place to live. We have, the weather, the environment. We also have relatively low taxes compared to a lot of other states, especially say California and New York. So staying here after you graduate, starting a business, working with some startups, working with established businesses is actually really attractive compared to say moving across the country where the environment and the financial impact may be a lot different.
Why would you want to leave here?
Yeah, one of our challenges as a company, we have 50 people, but we hire millennials, and millennials chase the dream, and they want to move to California. And I don't blame you. There's a lot of great opportunities out there, but it kind of is what you make of it. And I think to the economic point, Florida is probably one of the cheapest places to live in the country in terms of what you actually make, not necessarily the dollar figure at the end of the day, but the cost of living is way better here. So I think even if you make less, your money still goes further in the economy. You can buy a bigger house, you can have vehicles. There's things that people take for granted when they go to these big cities. And I think if you're going there just for the experience, that's one thing. But if you kind of had that already, or that's not of interest to you, Florida, especially Orlando, is a place to really set roots and kind of grow in your professional career.
Yeah. And I think it's important too, in attracting funding and attracting talent, that we start focusing on the stories that we're telling, right? So these big exit stories are happening in Orlando, and David, you can probably speak more to those stories than I can, but Florida Technology Journal and some of our publications, they're really working hard to tell the stories that are happening and start changing some of the dialogue that's being published about Orlando.
Yeah, I think the big thing is tech is everywhere. Orlando's not special because we have tech. We have specific kinds of tech, which is special, but every city is competing for tech. And I don't know if you guys saw recently, but the presidential administration released an announcement called Tech Hire, which essentially, I think it's $100 million or something in grants that they're distributing to 20 plus cities across the nation. And Orlando was not on that list, interestingly enough. But to be honest, I don't think we need to, because we already have the talent here. That money's going towards training, that money's going towards revitalizing economies that need it, like Detroit, but it's also going to places that don't need it, in my opinion, like San Francisco, because that's where people want to go. So I think, we can compete because we have it. We're not there begging for it. We're not there having to try it. We have it. We just need to let other people know. And again, that takes community involvement.
Mm-hmm. David, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Well, there's a lot of stories happening. There was just an exit, Pentaho. So we don't have necessarily the big consumer-facing brands that people may see every day, but Pentaho, a locally grown company, Richard Daly, he's going to do a talk next week, I think, at Rollins, sold his company for like $600 million. That's a homegrown company, and that guy turned down money multiple times from VCs in California, wanted him to leave. He's like, I like to water ski. I don't want to leave Orlando. But then you have companies like High Winds here, big CDN. They attracted about $205 million in debt financing last year. We've had Code School that sold for $36 million last month. Companies like Voxeo sold for $150. Channel Intelligence sold to Google for $120 million or so. So you've got some companies here from entrepreneurs that have built their companies ground up here that have had some big exits, and some of those entrepreneurs are starting to give back and start new companies and hire new people. So the other piece too, and I'll just go back to investment, because the first thing folks think of when they hear investment is venture capital. One thing that we have that sets Orlando apart probably from any other part of the country right now is the amount of private infrastructure that's going in. So we talked about Creative Village, but let's talk about Florida Hospital's Health Village, where they're focusing on digital health. And Lake Nona Medical City, there's already $3 billion in infrastructure and technology that's being powered by companies like Cisco and Under Armour and other consumer-facing brands. Apple's been working. I don't know if you know this too. You guys know that Apple has an engineering office here? So we're a hub for one of the other hubs we're not really known for is 3D hardware because of the space and defense industry. So Apple did some research on where the patents were for 3D hardware, and they found a cluster of them here in Orlando out by UCF, and they bought those patents. And there's a building by UCF with about 50 people in it that has the Apple logo on the side of the building, and most folks don't know that it's here. Zynga has an office here, So you got this combination of some consumer-facing brands, but then some companies that are homegrown that you might not know about that have had some big wins here. And then on the side, as we look at healthcare, which is really where we're shifting with digital health, the amount of investment going in with two major infrastructure projects at Lake Nona Medical City, which I invite you, it's right behind the airport. There's still cows out there roaming around, but what Tavistock Group has been able to do in their partnerships with UCF and UF. The veterans, the National Simulation Center is out there. It's pretty incredible. So the same talent, again, that you need to make a video game is the same talents being used to make these augmented reality experiences and VR experiences. I mean, we've been hearing from companies that are hiring Full Sail grads that are getting into health, the digital health space. And so Orlando really has a chance to be the global center as we look at simulation moving more into the future, because let's be honest, the simulation industry is based on DoD money. It's defense money that's been drying up, and so those companies have had to reinvent themselves and look at how do we take the same talent and the same applications and apply it to something different, and the healthcare space is really where it's at. So we have a huge opportunity here to be a leader, world leader in that, in digital health.
Yeah, that's a great point, David. And that's exciting developments. And you mentioned virtual reality and augmented reality. And it's true, having that foundation here with other work that has been going on in Orlando, we could be a leader in that space. So let's talk about...
I'll just add one more thing. You need the private investment. So it's not venture capital, but you've got the development. Whether it's Florida Hospital or Tavistock Group, we're talking about not millions, but billions of dollars that's going into these initiatives, which I think is incredible, and you don't see that anywhere else going on in the country right now.
Yeah, our universities are investing a lot too. Florida Institute of Technology just released plans to have a biomedical research facility and neuroimaging research facility down at Lake Nona. And UCF is doing tons, Full Sail's doing tons in the community, and I think that's another thing that sets Orlando apart is the involvement our universities have in the community and in that infrastructure.
The universities have been huge part of the economic development. We also have the advanced manufacturing facility that's being planned for Osceola County. So, I mean, continued, it's just incredible how much stuff is going on that's going on right now. So huge opportunities.
I think that was the big takeaway from that video too. It was only 3 minutes long or less, but just seeing all the different industries. When we're talking about technology, I think people do get kind of hung up. Was that internet stuff? What does technology mean, or is it simulation? It really transcends all those different businesses. There was healthcare, there was manufacturing, there was gaming, Dr. Phillips Performing Arts Center. I mean, everything that you guys are learning here in school can transcend into whatever industry that you want to make of it, right? I think that's the big thing, is there are opportunities. I don't think you have to think to yourself, well, I didn't study, internet stuff, so I can't get into tech, or there is connection with tech, and I think tech is kind of taking over, and that's why every city is really battling the tech ground to kind of keep the talent local or put themselves on the map, because everything is becoming tech, whether we like it or not. Things are becoming automated. That's what is happening to the jobs market. So I think you kind of have to wonder to yourself, what does that mean for my career? How am I going to get injected into that? And things change so rapidly, you have to be able to pivot with that and be comfortable moving fast along with it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, excellent points, Michael. Thank you. So we've seen the dramatic change that Orlando has undergone during the past 5 years. David's slide showing the 4 or 5 logos to the dozens of logos that could barely fit on one slide. So imagine that we're sitting here 5 years from now. So it's 2020. Well, hard to believe that we're going to be in 2020 in 5 years. So what would you be talking about that has happened in Orlando during the prior 5 years?
Well, hopefully I-4 is going to be finished.
I think that's perpetual.
I think it's a 7-year project.
That's awesome. Well, from WeVenture, we want Orlando to become the place for women to start and grow companies and specifically take technologies to market. So that's what I want to see happening in 2020. Maybe some other things too.
Yeah, I think honestly, 5 years in today's time is like impossible to predict, because technology moves so fast. I think 5 years ago, what kind of phones do we have? Or even 10 years ago, what kind of phones do we have? They like flipped open and weighed 5 pounds. So I think the rate and pace at which technology drives businesses and innovation, I think there's some businesses and verticals that are a little behind just because of their structure, whether it's government or sometimes education or usually healthcare. Those are kind of the big 3 that are behind the curve. But even now, they're really trying to be progressive. Again, downtown, they're investing in the train, the Sunrail, couldn't think of the name, and like you mentioned with healthcare, and obviously Full Sail with education. So I think as long as we can keep up with the curve, then we're going to be wherever we're going to be. I think that's just the way that we have to operate as a city, is to keep up and actually try to get ahead of that curve if we can. And again, that takes the talent.
I'll just say that 2015 might be the most important year in the history of Orlando. We've got folks up in Tallahassee lobbying for the film tax credit. I think they got their first win today with it going through one of the subcommittees. That incentive or that tax credit needs to be replenished because it does tie into the gaming and digital media industry. So we're talking about jobs here. Things like OrlandoiX have to be incredibly successful. We're talking about projects like the Creative Village. So folks are representing the University of Central Florida in Tallahassee to get funding for the $200 million campus. That will be essentially the first major piece that'll bring, I believe, about 10 to 12,000 students to downtown. And there's some partnerships there with Valencia and some other schools. That's incredibly important. So I think when you look at the next 5 years, there are decisions that are being made now that are going to dictate what's going to happen. So, for instance, if that tax credit is not passed, and this is the last time, this is the third year they've gone up to Tallahassee, it affects us because the brands that sponsor us, like Full Sail and EA, that support what we're doing, aren't going to continue to fund things if the state is not going to provide the incentives. I don't think people look at it that way. It's not about location anymore. It's about where are the incentives for companies and talent to go to. And so we're in a critical piece with that, and we'll learn more in the next 5 or 6 weeks on that. Unfortunately, a lot of our future is in the hands of lawmakers in Tallahassee as they go through that process. And so we'll have to see where that goes, and hopefully it moves along positively so we can keep doing the things that I'm working on, because we need the support, we need the dollars, we need our mayors on board, and some of those things, if they go away, it's going to make it difficult out here in Orlando. So.
Yeah, I think that the people who have done, everything that's on that slide in the past 2 years, they're committed to being here for the next 5 years. So, we're committed, we're invested, we're not going anywhere, and we need to be having succession planning. There's going to be things that we have to move on to, and raising up the next generation of leaders and positioning people to take projects or launch them onto, their projects is going to be really important for us for whatever the next 5 years is going to look like.
And hopefully all of you out here and then those watching online will be a part of that as we build Orlando over the next 5 years. And it's been an excellent foundation. I want to thank David, Michael, and Shea for helping to lay that foundation over the past couple of years and going forward. And we do have some time for questions before we wrap up. So if you do have a question for our panelists, please raise your hand and a microphone will be brought to you. And for those of you who are joining us online, please direct your questions to the online moderator who would try to accommodate any questions that you have. All right, so any questions for David, Michael, and Shea about Orlando?
Animation, and I eventually want to become an entrepreneur, and I think about basing it here in Orlando. And the question is, other than networking, the thing that Full Sail teaches you from day one, where would you say to network at other than Canvas or at the IEX?
I think the answer is you're already an entrepreneur and you don't know it. So I think it's about what you do with it that counts.
What I'm thinking about doing is probably opening up a tech business for a different type of ebook. So where would I say, or where would you recommend that I try to start creating those bonds and meeting with the right type of people to start pushing that forward?
Start going to pitch events. Start going to things like 1 Million Cups. Start going to Start Something. Start going around and listening to people who are sharing their ideas and listen to how they're talking about their ideas. Sometimes entrepreneurs have a tendency to want to innovate, in a cave or in a vacuum because they're scared of their ideas being stolen. The best thing you can do is to talk about your vision, talk about your idea. That's how you'll attract talent in these places where innovators are just congregating.
A good resource too is the Orlando Tech Association's Tech Meetup. They do a monthly meetup, and that's a good opportunity to go and just, I think their next meetup is is it next week?
It's tomorrow.
Is it tomorrow? Okay. It's in downtown. We can get you that information, but I would go there and listen to they usually have about 3 or 4 groups that pitch ideas. Some are a little bit more fleshed out than others, but you're going to be around a lot of young, like-minded people. So I would check that out, and that's free to go to, and it's consistent. It's every month. So
I think the more important thing is you have to network, and network isn't meeting people. Network is really building relationships with people. So you have to really get out there and really just find people with common ground to share that vision with you to kind of pull it forward.
Yeah, and that's something I can say I've loved about Full Sail. I went to Florida State as well. I was pre-med at Florida State a million years ago, and I don't have any of those relationships with those faculty and instructors, but, you know, Carol Cox took me through the ringer in my business models course, and it was awesome. And I think that your Full Sail instructors, because they keep, you know, involved in projects in the community, they are great contacts. They are great relationships to nurture, like Michael's talking about.
Question over here.
Yes. This is a question from the YouTube streaming from one of their students. It is from M. Swiller Films, Chris M. Swiller. With all this growing technology and creativity in Orlando, what role does the social media community have in all of this, and how is it growing in social media?
Yeah, and so the social media community in Orlando and the talent in Orlando really gets to broadcast the messaging, right? You get to tell the stories. You get to be part of determining what is trending in Orlando. So I would love to see the social media community really spending time, not just in the marketing community, but down in the tech spaces, down in OTA, coming to OIX and really interfacing with the technologists and the digital technologists to finding out what are those stories and promoting and telling those stories online.
And there is also an Orlando social media group who meets regularly, monthly, I believe, as well.
Yep.
Great, thank you. Any other questions from the audience here or online?
Hi, my name is Patrick Tumalergo. I'm a web design student here. I want to thank all the panelists for coming out and talking to us. It's really helpful. My question is for David. Could you elaborate more on the OrlandoiX that you're speaking about, and also how could we get involved if we wanted to?
You'll be involved because Full Sail is one of our biggest partners in it. So OrlandoiX stands for the Orlando Interactive Experience. It's a 5-day international digital festival that takes place at venues downtown and at the convention. The best way to describe it is it's sort of Orlando's version of a South by Southwest. But we're playing to the strengths of entertainment technology, interactive media, and digital arts, which, again, largely is what you guys have going on here. So we'll have panels, we'll have big keynotes from industry leaders. We're turning the Amway Center into a big gaming stadium. One area that we think we're going to be really strong in is inside the Amway Center, independent game projects, because we're also becoming a hub. I know we didn't really touch on Indienomicon, another group that if you're a student you should dial into. Indienomicon, I'll just plug indienomicon.com. They also do a monthly meetup, but we have actually had a growing independent game community that has come out of the simulation industry. So beyond EA and Zynga and some of the other consumer-facing brands, we have a lot of smaller companies in the sim industry that work on serious games or consumer-facing games on the side. And then we have students here at Full Sail and other schools around the Southeast. So we want a way to showcase them. There's two sides, you folks that make the games and then the folks that play the games. And so we provide a platform for that. In October, we'll have a digital expo. We'll have a startup summit. I mean, there's really something for really everyone in this industry to experience. We're really bringing the entertainment tech. We really focus on entertainment technology for this first year because we're a hub for that. Really bringing that industry here. And so we're going to be making some announcements over the next 6 to 8 weeks on speakers and how to get involved, whether that's volunteering or we'll have a ticket allotment for Full Sail. So we'll let them disperse how they want to handle that. So there's opportunities to volunteer. We'll need a lot of volunteers. But it's going to be a great program to really showcase our strengths here to the world. I mentioned I'm tired of people leaving Orlando to go to San Francisco and New York and Austin for this stuff. And quite honestly, it's getting more and more expensive. So you can stay here and really meet the industry. And some of those folks are floating around with Hall of Fame week from some really great brands, but we're also bringing some of those brands here for 5 days. And we're expecting about our plan is to have up to 50,000, so about anywhere from 7 to 15,000 people a day. Lots of social events, lots of food and beer for those of you under 21 or over 21. That came out wrong. concerts and things like that. So it's our first year. The website, another shameless plug, OrlandoiX.com. I encourage you to subscribe to our list so you're on that list and you see the updates and ways to get involved. So.
Great. Thank you for asking about that.
Just I've always been attracted to the tech industry, but my undergrad is in filmmaking, and I'm currently pursuing my master's in entertainment business. Is there a way to, and it's been a big debate for me whether should I stay or should I go? And I'm wondering, is there a way as a filmmaker that I could actually integrate into this type of scheme for someone like myself?
Honestly, I think a big thing that we're getting into at Purple is that branded content, whether it be photography or video. At the end of the day, it's storytelling, right? I think that's kind of the creative component that people don't really connect to with the web. So you don't have to understand coding. You don't have to understand really media. I think, not to say that those jobs are going away, but the industry, again, is transforming. There's a new product that's hitting the market called grid.io, and it designs your website for you based on artificial intelligence and algorithms. So I think that it's really up to anybody to kind of create what the internet is. I think it really just comes down to what is the content on the internet and what does that mean for consumers and users of your products or whatever it may be. So in terms of video, if that's your passion, follow your passion. The medium will change all the time, right? We go from records to cassettes to CDs to digital. It's no different with video. So as long as you're following your passion and you're following the wave of technology and you keep the two of those things together, then regardless of whatever industry you're in, you're going to find some connection there and you're going to have a successful career.
Yeah, and I would say for the film industry, if you look at stats, things like video on demand, it's just kind of starting to plateau or even tick down, but live streaming is exploding, and that requires production teams and scripting, and everything around filmmaking is involved in live streaming. That industry is blowing up. So that's driven by technology, so that's also a place to play in.
I mean, look how many people were here just to produce this. There's like 10 people in the back and however many people behind the scenes for the online stuff. So that's true.
Question over here.
Okay, this question is also from online. Robert Silliman, with everything tech changing around us changing, what is one thing that we can expect not to change?
Change itself. I think back to that previous comment, I think it's the content that matters. I think it's those experiences that you want out of the content and the media. People watch TV different. You stream TV through Netflix or HBO Go or whatever. So I think it really just boils down to that human-to-human connection through whatever media may be. People ask about social media, and I have strong opinions on what social media is and isn't. It's not the platform. Facebook can go away at some point. Twitter can go away at some point. There will be new platforms out there to create what is social media, but social media is the fact that people are being social with one another through any specific type of channel. So all those things considered, I think, yes, change will always happen, and it's happening a lot faster, and we have to keep up with it, but it's all progressive, and I think as long as you're focused on what matters, then you're going to be just fine.
Any more questions?
My name's Angelina. I'm an NU degree called Media Communications. And my question's for Michael. I've been a fan for Purple Rock Scissors for quite some time now.
Thank you.
And I was wondering what your company looks for when applying to Purple Rock Scissors or a company like that.
Interesting. Yes. So there's kind of a screening process with some people who are kind of involved in the day-to-day. And that's just general, do you have, not the academia, but are you capable of doing your everyday job? But we don't hire people to do their everyday job. We hire people to go above and beyond. And we look for people who have that special nudge, and people that kind of stretch themselves and want to keep learning, and they have that drive and that motivation and that hunger. We went on kind of a leadership retreat back in January, and we actually realized that one thing that we're looking for is energy. And when people don't have energy, they kind of wind up in those jobs rather than the careers. So as long as you have that energy and that passion, we will find a position for you if we feel like you belong at the company. That's happened several times since I've been with the company, and I've actually forced it to happen several times. So as long as we find talent that has energy, I think that's all that really matters, because you can learn the academics, you can learn the vocational skills, but it's what people call soft skills, which in my opinion aren't soft at all. I think it's the critical skills that you need to succeed in life. It's that energy and that drive and that passion to kind of do what you want in your career and for our clients, because we're a service-based industry. So you have to take that into consideration as well.
Great. And Shea, what do you look for when you're looking to contract out or to hire people?
Yeah, so exactly what Michael said. I'm looking for a culture fit first and foremost, and then I'm looking for obviously that there are some skills in place, but that there is a demonstrated willingness to grow and learn. So you've chosen digital technology, whatever you've chosen to pursue here at Full Sail, you're going to be a lifetime learner, because the technologies are always evolving, which is another reason why I like Full Sail students. So demonstrating teachability, coachability, culture fit, and also what you said, making opportunity, looking for opportunities to insert value above and beyond.
Great. And David, why don't you talk a little bit about, you produce events, so you don't necessarily hire employees, but you obviously have a lot of people who are involved. They're big productions. So what are the types of roles that you fill?
Just going off of what Shea and Mike said, and really adding onto it, is I look for people that are good at a lot of different things. And I think that goes across really any employer today. And we have a lot of small companies. We're in the Florida small business state. So companies are looking for the T-shaped employee, not the one person that's good at one thing, but they can do a lot of different things, and they want to learn and they want to grow. And that's what I have, is that, when you're planning events, your roles shift over time. So, we're going from fundraising mode with OIX to starting to recruit speakers and getting into starting to execute the event. Then we get into, as we get closer to September, August and September, we're in full-blown execution mode. So our roles of my current team, we have about 5 people, we're going to be adding about 3 more, are going to change as we go along the process. And so I need people that can do a lot of different things. I can't just hire somebody to just do social media. I need that person in social media to run communications, to help media manage, to go out and work with other groups, and stand in front of a microphone and introduce us. I mean, there's a lot of things that those people have to be able to do, and so that's what I look for. Self-starters, people that are energetic, and I've got an incredible team right now, and they just it's like, and they want to be involved. That's the one problem I'm having with my team, is they want to control everything, and I'm like, just do this for now, so.
All right, great. We still have time for a few more questions.
Hi, I'm Christine. This is for all 3 of you. What's a piece of advice that you would give your 20-year-old self?
Don't drink. No, I'm kidding. I shouldn't be kidding. Man, that's a challenging question. Orlando is better than you thought, but I think I wound up here anyway, so, regardless of the advice. But you just have to kind of stick with your dream and follow it. And one big thing I say is I don't have regrets. I have lessons learned. And as long as you kind of have that outlook and you're always learning from your mistakes and failures, and you're always pressing forward towards your goal, whatever it is, just make sure you set yourself a goal and keep moving in that direction.
Yeah, we do a lot of stupid things at 20. I mean,
I've been kicked out of iBar 3 times in one night, just so everybody knows.
Impressive.
Just lessons learned. I mean, there's just, when you're 20, you're exploring things. I think I made 8 career changes at 20. I thought I was going to be in retail merchandising with the JCPenney company. I thought I'd be a retail buyer in fashion for JCPenney. That was my dream at the time. And I went and shifted into the floor care industry, to publishing, to event planning, and moved from Atlanta to Tampa, and now from Tampa to Orlando. So it's just kind of interesting, the path you take, once you graduate, high school and start, college, and it's amazing. So I don't know what I would tell my 20-year-old self. I think just that experience was a good experience of just going through all the mentorship and failures. I can tell you, I failed 3 times. I've almost filed bankruptcy 3 times. So, I've gotten my teeth kicked in, and sometimes you have to go through that. And that's one thing, just going back to talent, you can't just come out of here and go to a company or become an entrepreneur and think it's just going to happen for you. You will get your teeth kicked in hard. And I can't tell you how many times I've had to pick paying an employee versus paying my own rent. Those are the kind of decisions you got to make when you're an entrepreneur. So it's tough, but I think going through some of those failures have helped me now not to make those mistakes, or at least minimize. Everything that I do is a risk. This event in October, there's no guarantees. Shit, we'd love to have 50,000 people. Is it going to happen? We're planning for it, but we don't know that. We've got the right partners. So no matter how much planning you do, things can change, and you can lose your shirt pretty easily if you're not careful. So when I was 20 years old, I didn't think about those things. It's just like, hey, let's just do it, not think about and managing your budget. There are applications out there. So I'm going to be 39 years old next month, and I've got an app, and it has spending tracker. And I actually track now what I spend in food and gas and things like that, because I'm on a budget myself. So
Back in your day, you had to balance a checkbook.
yeah, we had to balance
on
a checkbook.
paper.
Now we do it all digitally, but keep track of, I think too many people just when they, get out in the real world don't really realize how much money they're spending and what they're doing. And, now with all the applications that are available, it's tough out there. If you're on a tight budget, keep track, know your numbers.
That's good. I would say don't be afraid to fail. I was so afraid in my 20s. I thought that there were all these standards or roles that I had to play or expectations I had to live up to. I hit 30s and I'm like, I don't care. Let's fail fast. Let's fail forward. I'm all about experiential learning now, and I wish I'd embraced that in my 20s.
Great question. Thank you. Any final questions for our panelists? Yes.
This is from Vernon Porter. He has a question for Michael. How much experience would you want someone to have if they wanted to intern for your company? He said he researched it and it looks really awesome. And he said he's also in the emerging tech program.
In terms of experience, I think again, you just have to have that energy and you have to have that personality to kind of play ball, because it's not an easy job. We set the bar really high, and I think that's why we are where we are. So you have to want that. You have to kind of treat it like Marines. If you're not cut out, you're out the door, ring the bell. But if you're up for that challenge, it's the way that we operate is very low involvement, high accountability. So we drop you off on your mission, in the woods, and you have to get to the extraction point. So as long as you're able and willing, and like David said, you can kind of flex in different directions and you wear a lot of hats. That's really what we're looking for from an internship, is that you want to learn and you're willing to work hard and hustle.
That sounds like fun. Do you actually go out in the woods? That might be a fun event.
Interestingly enough, I think our director of technology is looking into that as an option for a team building activity. He wants to take the developers camping and get away from computers for a little while.
Sounds good.
All right, yeah, they can hear me. I'm Robert Washington. I guess I have this last question here. Which channels, both online and offline, would be best for us to follow in order to stay ahead of this curve of tech, that Orlando is going through, all these changes?
Well, you can get on FloridaTechJournal.com. As I mentioned with OIX, keep up with, it's OrlandoiX.com. I also would pay attention to the Orlando Tech Association. Their website is orlandotech.org. They do some programming. Obviously, Shea's very tied in with, she's got 1 million cups that she's been a part of. And so there's a lot of different resources. But I'd say between Florida Tech Journal and Orlando Tech, those are good hubs for finding out other things that are going on. And they all have newsletters of upcoming events as well.
Yeah, those will get you started, and then go to the events and build relationships. And as you build those relationships and you have those connections, you'll find more resources that you want to plug into.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of just general resources, if you're on LinkedIn, well, if you're not on LinkedIn, you should be on LinkedIn, number one. But two, the LinkedIn Pulse channel is really, really good because it sends you articles and relevant information for your learning experience based on how you build your profile. So the things that you're categorize yourself as your skill sets and whatever, it curates that content, and that's what shows up in your feed. So I actually find most of my material not by going to a specific website every day, but just by opening LinkedIn Pulse and just kind of flipping through, and it's a lot more relevant to me because it's curated.
Great, thank you. And I think that you all will find, if you haven't already, that even though Orlando is a relatively large area with a large population, it definitely has a very small town feel. And so once you start going to some of these tech creative related events, you'll see the same people, which is good because you'll get to know them, they'll get to know you. Be friendly, be interested in what they're doing, and show up. Because I've seen the three of them over the years at different events, because it really is a small, tight-knit community, and we really do help each other. So it's a great opportunity to get involved now.
And for the online students, the Orlando influencer community, I guess, is very involved on social media. If you're not in town and you want to get involved in what we're doing here, tweet at us. We love it. We're very responsive in general.
David C. Glass on Twitter.
I'm at Danya Shea.
At Michael Parler.
All right, great. Well, thank you so much, David, Michael, and Shea, for taking the time to be here today for our panel. And thank you to those who came here in person and those who watched online for your time. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And get out there and take some field trips, get to know downtown Orlando. Thank you.